It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to talk about Zellij. Maybe it's Zellij. This is an absolutely awesome, powerful command line tool. It basically lets you create workspaces in your terminal. This is really a tool for Bash. It's really a tool for Linux as far as I can tell. Now, if you're using the Bash or ZSH shell, you've got a command here where you can try it without installing it, which is pretty awesome. So you just copy this, paste it into your shell, and it'll start up Zellij for you. And we'll do that in just a minute. If you're using the fish shell, they have an option for that as well. And if you've never used the fish shell, I think I'll do a video on that too. It's pretty great. I really like it. I probably need to switch to it a little bit more often, but Bash works for me for now. They've got a link to their GitHub, Twitter, Mastodon, which is great. And they say the future is terminal. Such a funny thing, right? Terminal usually means the end. Future, of course, means the opposite of the end, so I really like that. So in this video, I'm just going to introduce you to Zellij. It's got a ton of really amazing capabilities. I cannot go through all of them. It's not possible, and it would be too much, but they have really, really good documentation. They've got some great information they've got about. So they tell you, what is this? What's the purpose of it? What's it for? And it's really awesome. So you can go through, you can create multiple tabs, and in those tabs you can create multiple panes in a single window, so we'll talk about that. But you also have this layout engine. And this layout engine right here shows YAML. They actually use a little bit different way of doing this now, which is pretty great, but you can do some really cool things where you create a layout, and whenever you tell Zellij to open, or whenever you open your terminal, it'll just pull up that layout for you every time. That's really cool because you get to save that thing that you like the most and use that tool in that way. And you can set it for different things and different layouts for different reasons, and then have those things come up. It also has a plugin system, and there's some pretty cool plugins out there as well. So we'll check out a couple of these plugins as well during the video. I'm going to go through how to install it, how to get it running, everything like that for you. They have a news page, which just gives you some updates and things like that that are happening, but I really love the roadmap page. You don't see this on a lot of open source projects. I think a lot of open source projects just get going and then they get popular, and the person that runs it doesn't have time to really sit down and make a roadmap. They just get inundated with all kinds of requests and all kinds of bug fixes and things like that. So I love that they've made this roadmap and they've put it up here in this kind of user story format. I want this thing so that I can do this thing. That's the way you should write a story. As a user of Zellij, whatever you want to say. As a user of Zellij, I want to code plugins in my own language and have Zellij load them, sandbox them, and produce an API to both itself and the system. I mean, that's a pretty great little story that tells you, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And then down here, they break this apart into user experience, plugin experience, and configuration experience. So I love to see a roadmap like that. I think it's awesome. It lets you know where they're headed with the project. And if they'll keep this up to date, it's going to be so great. They do have some great documentation as well. So whenever you go to the documentation, I mean, it goes all the way through anything you'd want to know about how to use this. I think they've done an incredible job just setting up the documentation as well, and it's a great user guide, so it's a really good place for you guys to start. Again, I'll be using some of these things to help you go through this stuff in the video today, but also installation is just such an important and huge part of what you're going to be doing. Now, they do have other screencasts and tutorials. Definitely recommend you get out there and check those out, and then you can go and access the repository as well. All that said, we're going to get into installing and using Zellij right after this. I just want to say thank you so much to all of my patrons over at Patreon. It means so much to me that you want to support my content every month. I mean, it just means the world to me, and I cannot say thank you enough. To everybody who does buy me a beer, buy me a coffee through PayPal, truly appreciate that, and it brightens up my day to see that notification come through. I love to get any kind of notifications like that and to hear from my patrons over at Patreon, to hear your comments, to hear your thoughts. Thank you so very much. To everybody who's subscribed, thank you. I mean, it really means a lot that you're helping the channel grow. And if you haven't done so, go over there, subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to put notifications so you're notified of new videos when I put them out. This helps the channel grow. It helps other people find it. So I really appreciate your help with that as well. Now let's get into Zellij. All right, first things first, we want to actually try out Zellij. So you can do that pretty easily by just scrolling down here. If you have Bash or ZSH, you'll want to copy this top command and you just click the copy button. If you have fish shell, then you'll want to copy this bottom one, and again, just click the copy button. So I'm going to click the top copy button for my setup, and I'm already SSH into one of my servers. So I'm just going to Control Shift and V, like Victor, And so it's showing you a control capital V there. And that pastes that in. I'm going to hit enter and it's going to start. It's going to start up and it's going to give you this kind of option. It's going to say, hey, how do you want to run this? Do you want to run it in the default configuration or do you want to run it with something else where you have to unlock things first? I just choose the default configuration. So to do that, you're just going to press enter and you'll see that it gets it set up. Now you can tell my terminal is a bit different from when I started. I've got this tab up here and down here I've got all of these controls that I can use and I can try this out. Now, this is a really great way for you to get started if you're not sure you want to install the actual Zellij information or the Zellij application. So I'm just going to quit out of this with Control Q and I'll just clear that out. Now if I want to install this on my actual system, there's a few ways you can do that. So if we go back over here, there's the Linux download. This is going to just pull down a tar.gz file, but there's also stuff in your package managers. So I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. For the apt package manager. So you might check your package manager. I know they have Arch packages, they have Alpine packages, they have all kinds of packages. The things that they don't list on their page, which is interesting, is snap packages for Ubuntu or Fedora packages, things like that, but they have a lot of the others. So definitely go check out what they have. But if we do sudo snap search Zellij, so right here you can see that they've got Zellij and it's 041.2 and it's going to work for pretty much anything that we try to run this on, and it's going to tell you what it's going to have. So there's a snap package for it as well. If we go look at the release information for what we just downloaded, so we can click on the repository link here, be taken to the repository, and we can always go over here to the right and go to releases, and if you look, it's 041.2. So there's a snap package that keeps Zellij pretty well up to date for you. It's up to you how you want to get that or how you want to install that. Now, since I clicked, it pulled it down to my system here. It didn't actually get the tar.gz for me on the terminal system. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and I'm going to right click on this thing and see if I can copy the link. I think it's just a JavaScript thing, so I don't think I can do that. But we can go back over here to our repository and we can just grab the link for the assets for the tar.gz. So we go to releases. And we can read about the release. This is always really super good for you to do. And then you've got all the different assets. So they've got the tar.gz for Darwin. This is going to be your Apple version. This is unknown Linux, SHA-256 sum. And then we've got the unknown Linux tar.gz. We've got Apple again, unknown Linux, and then unknown Linux. So let's see which one it pulled down for us. x86-64. So it's this one here. So this is your ARM64 up here for your Linux. So I definitely want the x86-64. So I'm just going to say copy the link and I'll go back in here and I'm going to use wget. And if we do just a clear there, we can do an ls and we'll see that we've got this tar file here. So we're going to say tar-x zvf Zellij. That should open it up and we should have Zellij in there now if we do an ls, and here it is right here. So if you're getting it this way, the next thing you want to do is give it an executable permission. So we're going to do chmod +x ./Zellij, just like that. Now we can run it with ./Zellij. Now you can put this wherever you want. You may have an applications folder you'd rather have it in, something like that. But again, once we run it, because we've already run the testing download, we told it what we want, it goes to the default, and we've got Zellij up and running. There's a few things we can do here to start off just to give you a little bit of an introduction into how to navigate and how to do some things. So let's get into that next. So the first thing to take note of is that it opens up in a tab automatically. So you've got this initial tab where you're starting with your initial pane. Now you can add more panes to your tab. You can also add more tabs and name those tabs across the top, and you can add multiple panes to each of those tabs. So let's just add a pane here first. So we're going to do Control P for pane, and then it gives you a new context menu down here at the bottom. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do N for new, and it's going to automatically create this pane. Now, we can resize this if we don't want it to be split exactly in the middle. Maybe we'll want something a little bit further over here and more space over here, and we're going to try to link these up to be like a file picker. And there's ways you can do that, so I'll leave that to you to find in the plugins. But just to show you kind of how you can change the layout, you can see that there's different options, and there's a resize option, which is Control N. So I'm going to do Control N, and Because this is the one where I have my cursor, it's the one it wants to resize. But now all I have to do is use my arrow keys and I can move this over. I've got a different layout right here. I'm done. If I want to move it this way, I can do that. It's really up to you how you're going to set up your different tabs and how you're going to set up your different spaces. Now, if I hit enter, that takes me back to my normal context menu and I'm back where I can just type in and do commands. If I do Control P again, I can add another new tab or another new pane and you can see kind of how that functions. And then if I do Control P again, I can do another one and you see that it puts it down here. Now, relaying these things out is something where you can kind of go through their layout configuration tools and set up the things that you want it to, the way you want it to be laid out in a little bit better way. There's ways to move things around and to do things or to move between these different panes. But if you do, for instance, where it says move, where it says Control H, so if I do top right here, and then I do Control H for move, I want you to understand what this is going to do. This is going to move this highlighted pane to a different location on the screen based on the arrow that I click. So if I hit up, it's going to move it up. If I hit right, it's going to switch it out with what was on the right to here. So it really just switches out for all your different movements that you have. And you can kind of move that particular window or that particular pane around on the screen. It does not relay out the screen in a different way. It just moves the information to the pane that's to the right of it versus showing it in the pane that you've got now. I want you to understand that that's what move means. It means move the pane, not really move the layout. When we're done with that, we can just hit enter because we're happy with our selection and we've got everything back to where it was. Now I don't have to use my mouse to move around, but I can. So I can jump between the panes just using my mouse, just like you would any other time. But I can also use hotkeys. So I can use Alt and an arrow key to move, and you can see I moved right. I can use Alt and an arrow key again to move right. I can use Alt left, and I can use Alt up to move up to this one above, and I can use the Q key then to quit out of top, and I can clear that out. I can again use Alt to move right, and it's just going to go in a circle as we go. Now I can't go any further right, so it's not going to do anything, so I can go back left and up and down. So that's moving between panes with your hotkeys. Next thing we might want to do is create a new tab, rename that tab, and then add panes to that tab as well. So to create a new tab, we're going to use our hotkeys. And again, if we just look down here at our context menus, it tells you what you need to do. So this is going to be Control plus T. So we're going to do Control T, just like that. And again, it changes our context menu to ask us, what do we want to do? Do we want to do a new tab? Do we want to move our tabs, move between tabs? Do we want to close a tab? Do we want to rename a tab? Do we want to sync tabs? Do we want to break out a tab? Do we want to break a tab? Do we want to toggle? Do we want to do something else? So we're going to do a new tab, and you can see right up here it created tab 2, and that's where we are now. So now if we do Control T, it gives us this nice context menu again, and I'm going to do move. So I'm going to use the arrow keys. And if you look, it moves me between the tabs. So I'm moving between my tabs. So I'm going to stop at this one. I'm going to hit enter to get back to my tab here. And now I can do Control P and create a new pane. And then let's do Control T again. And let's do one new tab. And then this time, let's rename this tab. So let's do Control T. We're going to do R for rename. And if you look up here, it gives me the option to enter a name for this tab. Let's call this monitor. We'll hit enter to save our changes. And now I can run my nmon tool, for instance. Oh, I don't have nmon installed. Let's install nmon. So now we can do nmon, and let's just monitor our CPU and our network. So we have a lot of CPU cores. We have network information that's down further on the screen here, but we are now monitoring. So now if I want to move between my tabs, I can do Control T. I can use my arrow keys, and I'm back to my second tab, and now I'm back to my first tab. So I can very quickly move between tabs and take different actions if I want to or need to. Now I showed you earlier that you could use Alt and left, or Alt and right, or Alt up down to move between panes. Now, if I continue left, because I'm in this center tab, I can go left again, and you look at that, I'm back on the first tab, and I can go left again, and left one more time, and I can even go down. If I do Alt left again, Alt right, I can go in a circle between all of my tabs very quickly if I kind of know where I'm trying to get. It may be shorter to do this than to do the Control T and then move between the tabs. It just depends on how many tabs you have set up and what tabs you're trying to use. If I want to go back to my monitoring tab, I can do Control T, move back to my monitoring tab just like this, hit enter, and I can do Q to quit out of Nmon, or I can restart Nmon. I can do networking this time and disks, and we can kind of see what we get. So we get our networking information up here, we get our disk information down here. Very straightforward, very easy to do. I love Nmon, it's a really nice little tool, it's a great little monitor. Very, very easy. Again, we can do Control T and move back to one of our other tabs here. And now we can do anything we really feel like we need to do. We can do Control P and we can do new, and it's going to create a new pane for us. So you can see that it stacked our panes together. And here we can do Control P and in, and it gives us a third pane. And we can go Alt this way and Control P and in, and we've got a fourth pane. So we've got all kinds of panes that we've created, and we've got lots of different things we can do to these different tabs. Now there's also some pretty good search. So if we go to downloads, not much in there. Let's do this one, etc. And we'll do an ls. And there's a lot in etc. So maybe you're looking for something specific. So now we can use the search functionality. So we can do Control S. Again, it gives us a secondary context menu about what are we trying to accomplish. We can scroll. We can use our page up and down scroll. We can use D and U to scroll. We can use E to edit and enter. We can select. So we can go search. We're going to do S to tell it we want to search. And now I'm going to start typing log. And you can see where it highlights log for us. We can press enter, and it brings us back to the search context menu. So we can use our up down arrow keys. So we can scroll, okay. We can also use our page up and down. We can use D and U. So if we use D, it's down, U is up. Then we have N for down, P for up. So it's actually highlighting the different options on the search that we created. So we have N down, P up, and you see that it changes colors when we do this. We can use C for case. We can use W for wrap, and we can use O for the whole thing. So I want it to match everything. So once we're done with that, we can just hit escape, and we're out of our search, and we're back to our normal context menu. So that's a very brief overview of how Zellij works. There's a ton more that we can do. So let's get into the plugin side of things. Now Zellij comes with a nice little file picker built in. It's pretty great for navigating your stuff, for navigating through your system. But getting it started, you do have to modify a configuration file just to give it a key binding. So let's go look at that key binding file first. So I've already done it, but I'll show you what you need to add. And then you've got a couple of options actually as well that you could add to it if you want. So we're going to go to cd and then .config. This is most likely where it's going to be if you're starting from your home directory. Let's see. There we go. Once we've got into .config, we're going to look at all of the things that we have here, and you should have a folder that says Zellij. So if we do cd Zellij like that, and we do one more ls, we can see there's a config.kdl file. So we'll do nano config.kdl. I wasn't really familiar with KDL when I first looked at this, but it looks like it's kind of a mix of JSON and YAML. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure why they chose this one, as if there's not enough configuration types out there already, but maybe this one gives them the flexibility that they need. What we're going to do is we're going to just go down through this file, and we're going to just continue down. There's a bunch of these bind sections, so you can see like this one is for resize. What are we doing for the resize binding? This one is for tab. So you can see all the different bindings for doing it different tabs. And you can say for number 1, it'll go to tab 1 and so on. So you can have a count for the tabs. Now you need to be in the tab mode to do this. You can also just set up different bindings to move between the tabs. I think Control O and Control I will maybe move to the left and right tab if you want as well. But as we go down, we're going to go all the way down here. There's scroll, there's search, there's session, and finally we're going to get to this one that says shared underscore accept, and then quote locked. And what we're going to see is they already have Alt F. Now their example says use Alt F, but Alt F actually opens up a floating pane. So I don't know if we want to change that one unless you have a different one you want to use for floating panes. But what I did was I went down and I just added another section right here underneath this last one. So the last one in mine was Control Q, which was quit. So that quits out of Zellij completely. And I added a new line and I put in bind and then space with an open quote, CTRL, all caps in my case is what I did. You don't have to, you can do it like they did with a lowercase CTRL. And then I did a space, ALT, so capital A, small l, small t is how I did it. And then a space and small f. So it's Control, Alt, and F, like find, to do this. And it's for file picker in this case. Then we're going to move out and we're going to close that double quote. We're going to move one space, open the curly brace, one space, and then we're going to type in launch plugins, or launch plugin all together. And that L is capital for launch and the P is capital for plugin. And we're going to move over and space, open quote, all lowercase file picker all together, close quote. One more space, open curly brace, close curly brace, semicolon, one space, and close this curly brace. Now, what this line says is, if I use the hotkey, Control Alt F, I want you to open up my file picker. In the second set of curly braces right here before the semicolon, you can actually add some options, and they have different options that you can use in order to actually change something. So I'm going to drag this over here and we can look at it. So here's what we have exactly. Now I switched it by putting Control Alt F instead of Alt F. Launch plugin, file picker, just like that. You can uncomment this line that says floating true, so it would be a floating file picker that opens up, and then you can tell it to close on selection true. So what happens is that pane closes, it opens up your selection in a new pane, but it makes your screen layout stay the same. If you don't put this in, it actually keeps the file picker open and then opens your selection in a new pane. So now you have multiple panes open and you may not want that. So it's up to you. So I'll show you what it looks like without this option, and then we'll go back and add this option in just a minute, and you can kind of see how it functions and what it looks like. So I've already set this. So once you're done making your changes inside of Nano, you can do Control X. It's going to prompt you if you've made a change, so you'll want to hit Y for yes in order to save it, and then press enter one more time just to make sure it saves, and then you'll be back here at the command prompt. So here we are at the command prompt. I'm going to CD back to my home directory here. We're going to do Control Alt and F all together, and you see it opens up a new pane with my search that I want to go through and find things. Now, I can use my arrow keys to tell this what I want it to do. So I start off in my home directory. You can see that right here. I could just search right here. So if I was looking for Waza, I just type WA and there it is, and I could run that deb or open that deb if I need to. I can also go to the downloads folder. I can then hit the right arrow key to enter into the downloads folder. So I'm just navigating through this and I can see different things that I have here. I can hit the left arrow key and I go back to my home folder, and again I can start typing to search, or I can just navigate. So I think if I do Control H, no, it doesn't show me the hidden folders, which is interesting. I might have to look up how they want you to do that. Oh yeah, Control E. So if we do Control E, that should show us hidden folders. Let's see, I got out of the pane. Maybe that's the problem. Let's go back. There we go. Now let's try Control E like Edward. There we go. So if we do that and we're in the pane correctly, now it shows us our hidden files and folders. So we can navigate to our config. And you notice when I hit enter, it put me into another pane, but it didn't put me into that config folder. So if I do an ls, I'm actually in my home folder. So this is a little bit, it's about getting used to how to navigate inside of here. So what I'm going to do is just exit this pane, and we're at the config, and I'm going to hit right arrow again. I'm going to go down here to Zellij, right arrow again, and now we can pipe what we want this to open in. So if you have a default editor set up already and you hit enter, it should open this in your default editor. So I'm going to try enter. Yeah, it didn't quite open it, but it did put me inside of that folder where I was at. So now I can do nano config just like that. And again, I can go through here and change my key bindings. When I'm done, I can of course just do Control X to exit out of that, and then we can exit that pane. Now, this stays open and it creates a new pane because I told it, hey, when I find something, don't close. I want to keep navigating. Let's try to exit from this pane. If I do Control P, we can now use X to close that pane. There we go. All right, so now let's go back and edit our file again. So let's do nano.config zellij config.kdl. And let's just move down and put in that piece that says close after I find what I want. So we're going to scroll down here a good ways right here. Here it is. Here's my section. And right here between these other curly braces, I want to put this in. Okay, I had to just check out one thing. So when we do this, I thought when I did this that I could do this all in a single line, but actually the KDL apparently wants this to be on separate lines. So you need to kind of follow their format if you want to use these options. If you're not using the options, you can just set it up the way I did on a single line. But if you're using the options, you need to put them on multiple lines like this. So I went back and changed that. I'll show it to you real quick. So we'll just do nano.config zellij config.kdl. So right here you can see that I've got the bind, Control-Alt-F, the open brace, and then on the next line I indented launch plugin file picker and then open brace, and then on the next line I indented again, so close on selection space true, and then we put our close brace and semicolon on the next line lined up with our L, and then the final close brace lined up with the B here. That fixed the problem for me. I was having a little bit of an issue getting it to reopen Zellij whenever I didn't have that set, so it wasn't liking the layout of it, basically is what it told me. I'll do Control X to get out of that. But now if we do Control Alt F, we see that we get our file picker, and I can go down here to downloads, for instance. And you can see the two things I've got in my downloads, and I can actually hit enter, and it puts me into the downloads folder, and I can do things if I need to with it. So really pretty easy to navigate and use once you've got that file picker set up the way that you want. Just wanted to show you how to use that really quick. It's a built-in plugin that they have. I don't know why they don't set it up automatically for you. They make you go do it, but I guess it's a good way for you to learn how to do a few things in the key bindings and setting the configurations. Well, this is Zellij. I think this is a really awesome tool. I think this is going to be something I use on a pretty regular basis. The more I get used to it, the more I become a power user. It's going to be great. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along in the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.